Hello, everyone. You are watching, listening to Sunday Talks with Kelly and Lisa. I am Kelly.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
Um, yes, I have a Band-Aid on my face. I am aware of that. You do not need to comment on it. Um, I say that because in the past people have. So I'm fine, really. Today, we're going to talk about a lot of things that are going on with people we know, people we don't know. I mean, it's been really heavy energy. And a lot of people are kind of having the worst aspects of themselves coming up. A lot of it comes from guilt. A lot of it comes from shame. A lot of it comes from stuff that we bury through the years and we don't want to face. So um, I think we start there with how we are burying things. And everyone does it. It doesn't
Yes.
matter who you are, what you've been through. All of us do it from time to time. We just bury things we don't want to look at. So
And
we,
we find things to replace
yeah,
not facing things, whether it's some sort of addiction, going to the gym too much, workaholic, food, our latest obsession, whatever that latest obsession is, it could be a positive or a negative. And I know that there's no real positive or negative, it just is, but we have to have some sort of definition of it in our human existence, right? Our human
mhm,
experience. So we define these as positive or negative, and it can either raise your vibration or lower your vibration depending on what it is that you choose.
yeah,
We all have those moments. Kelly and I, you and I go way back.
yep.
Um, gosh,
I,
10 years now, I want to say.
I was
And
listening earlier today to an old podcast we did in 2015. So yes.
wow. Okay. So there you go. Wow, really. And we were in that book compilation that brought us together, which created our other podcasts that we've done. And then we have revamped because I've just missed conversations with you. But we both know that during a small portion of that time, I just celebrated 5 years of sobriety this year.
Yay.
And mine was definitely it was my addiction was the best friend that alcohol was to me
Yeah.
because some of the relationships in my life were not as fulfilling as I wanted them to be. And I was stuck because I allowed myself to be stuck, but I was stuck in a place of fear, despair,
Yep.
guilt of, oh my gosh, but if I leave, I'll feel so bad for hurting somebody's feelings or whatnot. So for me, it was alcohol became my best friend, and I relied on alcohol to be there for me whenever I needed it. So, yeah, it all kind of goes together, the guilt. And then, of course, I'm just now talking about the fact that I am 5 years sober. I don't really bring it up a lot because there's a lot of shame in that. So, and then there can even be shame in positive things too. And we'll get to
Right.
that a little bit later, but yeah.
Yeah. There are things that we become ashamed of only based on what society
Yes.
decides. And I think any kind of an addiction is one of those things.
Mhm.
Really, that is just something that your soul needed to go through for
Yeah.
growth. And if you look at things as this is a growth opportunity, I really think in a lot of cases anyway, it takes that sting out, where it becomes, that's who I was. I'm not that anymore. The other night I was in so much pain. I'm still recovering from an accident. And had just had a horrible day. And I was like, you know what? A friend sent me a bottle of whiskey. I'm going to crack it open. And I got it out and I looked at it and I set it on the counter and I went, you know what? I really don't want that.
Yeah.
So I went outside and sat on my porch swing instead. And it's just those little moment by moment choices that can make all the difference in the world. Um, but really, you should never be ashamed of who you are, what you've gone through, because that was an opportunity for growth. The other thing about that is the guilt. And I have seen so many people get into a spiral. They feel guilty about feeling ashamed. So now they're ashamed of being guilty. And then they go around and
Yes.
around and around. And again, that's something society puts on us. Um, a big thing that I've been talking about lately to people, years and years and years and years, I've used this tool with people, is put yourself in a pink hamster wheel, or those big balls, the clear
Yeah.
see-through hamster balls, not a wheel. That's bad. No, a ball. Yeah. And just surround yourself in that. And let anything that society is sending to you, anything you're taking on from society, let it bounce off and protect your energy. A lot of times we don't give ourselves enough credit for having gone through something we've gone through. We kind of downplay it. It's like, well, I shouldn't have done that to begin with, so I'm just not going to look at it. But we have to. You have to get to the point where you're proud of the fact that you've gone through this and you've
Right.
come out the other side, no matter what it is. I've through the years worked with so many people that have overcome so many things, and they are all things that society says, well, you shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. Don't listen to society, listen to your heart. You know what's going on.
Well, we all have our own path,
Yeah.
and we do have to glean experiences from that path, because we're put here to have this human experience. No matter no matter your belief process on why we're here, or where we came from, or where we're going when we leave, we are here in this human experience, and the human experience includes things that, as much as I don't like to say detrimental, that can be detrimental,
Yeah.
that are not in our best interests.
Right.
And we still have to experience them. And everybody does. Everybody absolutely does. It's hard to keep up with the Joneses and stay sane, So, and I think we talked about this last week. You don't know what's going on in that neighbor's house. You
Right.
don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Right.
So you really have to step out of you have to bring yourself back to the moment and not all these things happening and all the possibilities going on around you. I had a guest on my show last week at Rabbit Hole Reflections. She talked about, this is huge in society, money shame, too
Yeah.
much credit card debt,
Yeah.
living paycheck to paycheck, fear that you're going to end up homeless. And it's just, as you said, it's that spiral, it's that continual guilt, shame, guilt, shame.
Yep.
You're running on the treadmill of guilt and shame. And how do you stop that? And how do you get off of that treadmill? How do you get out of that hamster wheel? Part of it is taking a look, like actually stopping and saying, you know what, this is happening with me right now. I am in this situation. What is it supposed to teach me? What can I do? What strengths do I have that I can rely on, that I can get myself out of this situation?
A big part of that is staying in the moment. If you find, and most of us realize when we're starting that spiral, we get caught up in it for a while, but eventually it does dawn on us that, hey, I'm spiraling here. Stop. Stay in the moment. Look for things that you can be grateful for. Doesn't matter
Yes.
what it is. Um, I've done that so often that I'm finding I'm having to, I was grateful for that last time. What can I, but whatever works for you, go outside, sit outside, listen to the birds, feel the sun or look at the moon, depending on when you're outside. Um, Anything that keeps you right now, then you're not spiraling, then you're present in the moment. And when you train yourself to be present in the moment, you're going to be doing that spiraling a lot less. It does take some time, it's not instant. Um, I get calls from people, but I've been doing this for 2 days now. Okay, a little bit longer. These are not instant things. It takes some work, but it is part of your soul's journey
Yeah.
to encounter these things that help you grow your soul. Um, you know, I did a video recently about the spirituality of money.
Okay.
People don't realize what money is. It's an energy. It's a
Yeah.
tool. It's just a tool,
It is.
And when you diffuse that, that piece of society that says you must have more, you must buy new toys, you must have this and that and this. You don't need any of that.
Right.
Find out what it is that really calls to your soul. Then look at money energetically. What will I feel like when I have this? And start feeling that. That's how you manifest things into your life. You put yourself in that energy of that thing that you want. I probably know half a dozen people right now that are trying to manifest a new car. I don't know what it is with cars out here, but lately everybody I talk to is trying to get a new vehicle. Put yourself in the energy of how you're going to feel. Then it's not so much about the dollars and cents. It's about getting this, I feel like this. And then watch the money come to you, because that's diffusing that situation. We're too caught up in dollars and cents, and that's not what it's about. I was trying to manifest a new vehicle last year. I started that, and I never did get the money to buy one, but I got the car because an individual said, hey, you need a vehicle. Here, you can pay me. And that it came to me, not in the way that most people would think of. So don't worry about the how, how things are going to work out. Worry about the why, and don't worry about the why either. Just get into that why. How am I going to feel? Why do I want to feel this? Now, it could be a need that you have. I needed a vehicle. I live in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
My dogs are not into being a dog sled team. They're just not. So
Can you dog sled through the desert? I don't
I don't know. When I had horses, I used to say I was going to teach them to pull me around on a sled or on a sleigh there. But we need things in our society. We do need things, but don't get caught up in I need X dollars and X cents to get this. Stay in the energy of what you're trying to get or what you need to get. It's okay to need things. We all need things.
It is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you said staying in the present, how when you pull yourself back into the present and you're not so much in the future or not too far in the past, you can your brain, your soul, you start to come up with solutions.
Yeah.
And so I say a lot that I'm a survivor. I'm constantly surviving and I'm constantly surviving. Well, in this day and age, I feel like that's exactly what I do. But I'm constantly coming up with new ways to get money, or coming up with that solution to whatever it is that I'm facing. But you did bring up a very valid point of, okay, let me expand on it just a little bit. When we look at what we're currently going through, we can do some serious mental gymnastics, and it's going to take more than 2 days to do this, but mental gymnastics of what is that experience. You can even find gratitude in that experience that you're currently in, even if it's a lot of suck. There is something to be grateful for.
Yeah.
I remember we did a show once, or maybe we just had a conversation. I can't remember the details of where it happened, but you talked about a friend of yours who lost her entire house during a tornado.
Mm-hmm.
And she came out and said, well, I wanted to replace my kitchen.
Yeah. Needed a new kitchen anyway.
I needed a new kitchen anyway. So it's like, wow, that's some serious mental gymnastics. And it probably took some time to build herself up to be able to look from a different perspective of the stuff, of the good that came out of that bad as well. But that is something that it takes practice. You have to make yourself do it, but there is good in everything. And we're not saying don't gloss over the bad, but you don't have to stay in the bad. You don't have to let it consume you, burden you, become a part of you. It's an experience. So
the other thing that I started doing a long time ago is, okay, this is not happening to me. It's happening for me. What can I get out of this situation? And sometimes it's something as simple as I survived. Other times it's something that really makes you go and do a deep dive onto yourself. I was talking to someone the other day who said, in the middle of everything I was going through, I realized I was selling myself short. Mm-hmm. And this was a woman who was a past client. I haven't worked with her in years, but recently her husband died. And she was one of those women that I used to look at and go, never, 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 because she didn't know how to balance a checkbook. She was like still living in the 50s where he paid all the bills, he did all the stuff, and she is lost. So a lot of people, a whole group of other women are saying, okay, here's what we do first, and the thing that she realized was she was selling herself short. And she said, I was capable all along,
Yeah.
and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
And how often have, maybe not to that extreme, but how often do we all sell ourselves short?
Exactly.
So that's another thing to look at when you're going through something. There's so much stuff has been going on lately, and it's just don't get caught up in it. If it is not right here with you, don't get caught up in it. Yeah, you probably need to look at your finances on a
Right.
regular basis, but you don't need to let it swallow you whole.
Exactly.
Moderation in how you're feeling and what you're doing. Don't go down that spiral. It's easy to do. It's so easy to do. And right now, where everything is so up in the air and planetary alignments, and I know this is not the show for that, but seriously, planetary alignments are such that we've not seen, no one alive on the planet right now has seen the planets in this alignment.
Right.
So we don't know really what the energy is going to continue like, but it's been very, very heavy. And it really has been bringing out the worst in everyone. Don't feed that. Don't feed the fear. Actually, have a bumper sticker that said, don't feed the fear. Stay present.
Yeah.
You find yourself going down that spiral, pull yourself back, learn to pull yourself back. And
We were in a book together that was, I won't bring it up. I think we both want to keep that buried in the past, but we were in a book together that talked about community, unity in the community, and particularly in the global space, because that, there was a time where we didn't have the global space to have, to go into a group and just put our feelings out there and have, feedback or, read other people's experiences. Now there's Zoom meetings, if grief counseling or what,
right.
even group meetings, like a AA type of meeting or whatnot. There's so much that you can do online now that we didn't have 15 years ago, maybe a little bit. Yeah, it's come a long way. So there's always somebody out there who's going through a similar journey, and there's always help, and staying in the present doesn't mean that you have to ignore it, because we all know what happens when you ignore things. But find those people, find those groups, and start working toward being able to reframe. It's not saying that bad things aren't happening to you. It's not making light of your situation. Grief, for example, it really does suck, and it can, strike at any moment. But what tools do you have so that you don't stay there? I think one of your original books was When on the Road to Enlightenment, don't forget to take out the trash or whatever, right? So you're not staying in it. You're acknowledging it.
Yeah.
And then you're doing what you need to do to move forward.
Right. Yeah, I had a friend that was in San Francisco at the time of the earthquake in '89. And half of her house was still standing, the other half was sort of, cascading down the hill. And they interviewed her on TV. I knew her through Animal Rescue, and she was just a kick. She was just so funny. She was in her 80s then, and she was just hilarious. And they interviewed her with how she felt, and she said, "How do I feel? That sucked." And they went, "Okay, well, what are you going to do now?" And she said, "I don't know, but I'll do something." And the cameraman panned around and he's looking at the debris, and people are pulling cats and a dog, and and they're saving animals is what her whole thing was they have to be all right.
Yeah.
And the way the community came together for that woman, and the community at that time, San Francisco was badly hurt, a lot of damage during that earthquake. And the way the community, people who were also hurting, people who had also lost a lot, were coming together to help this woman. And she was just such a shining beacon. And at the same time, she was like, yeah, that sucked. It was just, her whole persona was like, I'm going to get through this. You guys all have to get through this too, because I'm older than you are. And that's what she would tell people who came to help her through animal rescue was, I'm older than you are. You've got a better chance of survival than I do. Let's do this. And I think that is very indicative of a certain generation. You know, it used to be the older people, they were like, yeah, okay, we just keep going. We just keep
Yeah.
going. We just keep going. And I think somewhere along the line, we kind of lost that a little bit, and it might be time to get that going. How many people have you heard that they have one thing and then they're like never the same again? You have to keep coming back. You have to keep, that sucked. Let's move on now, you know, or I was going to remodel my kitchen anyway.
Exactly.
You have to keep going. Whatever it takes for you to keep going is what you need to do. Um, some people cling to really weird things. I saw a news report, a very, very horrible floods in, it was a different country. I can't remember. It was somewhere in South America. And this girl, this little girl, she probably wasn't, she could not have been over 6 or 7, was digging through stuff. And I'm watching this news show going, oh God, I hope it's not an animal. Oh, I hope it's not an animal. Huh? And she pulls up this frog, and she was happy. And it was a stuffed frog, and it was, you know, gooey, and part of it was still green, but it was mostly, and she hugged it and she ran and she was so happy. And I was like, it's a frog. I love frogs. Cool. You go, little girl, you know. But whatever it is for you is what's important. You know, it doesn't matter what it is. It can be something little. It doesn't have to be something big. Something that keeps you going. Well, I've got this, so I'm okay.
I'm in a group right now. It's a mindset group, and we are in this challenge where every day we listen to something and we come back to the group and we post our takeaways. Lately, the leader of this group and several others that are participating in this group, we're drawn to the 10 tenets. Now, I don't know all the backstory to the 10 tenets, but I do know that there are 10 of them, and it is to help bring you back to who you are, to help bring you back to the present, to help you feel better so that you find just a little bit more motivation to move on to the next and then move on to the next and to keep taking those steps, because this is, as much as this phrase is probably worn out, this is not a marathon.
No,
This
it's
isn't
not.
even a sprint. You know, we've got to start from somewhere. And so those little steps along the way, but something that makes you feel better. Some people like to sit in their car and get their favorite beverage from their favorite coffee shop and enjoy that beverage. And you know what? If that's what helps you right now, that's okay to do. Wearing jewelry, or having a little trinket that when you look at it, it makes you smile or makes you remember somebody or something special, you know, from your past. It's absolutely okay to do that. I know there was one time you and I talked. For me, sometimes it was just getting out of my bed. And I was very grateful that I had children to keep me from staying in bed too long. But sometimes it's as simple as getting out of bed and taking a shower. And if that's where you are and that's where you're starting, that's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. And definitely hold on to that, celebrate that. Don't look at the, oh, I got out of bed and took a shower, but I'm not wherever it is that you want
Right.
to be yet.
Right.
Celebrate what you've done
Yep.
and where you are. And then even celebrate where you're going, because that's part of that. drawing in the experience, how you're going to feel, where you want to go. But definitely celebrate what you've done and stop thinking about it in, don't put the but in there.
Yeah.
Don't put your butts in there. Okay. Just do it. Celebrate where you are, what you've done.
Yeah, those little tiny wins are everything. I'm in a business group right now, and it's funny to me because for many, many, many years, I was a serial entrepreneur. I would have an idea and I'd start a business based on an idea that I had. And I did it over and over and over and over. I love the beginning part. I love that let's do something cool here. But watching other people and it kind of, I don't really engage much in this business. I mostly sit back and chuckle because I recognize my younger self. And they're all about, well, I'm going to do this. And then by this time, I'm going to have this. And then I'm going to have this. And I'm going to have this. And I'm going, yeah, okay. I'm drinking coffee. Yeah. Because you get so focused on the big picture that you can wear yourself out, because you're not there. It's not instant. It is
Right.
a journey. The most successful bit, well, I had a couple of them that were pretty successful, but the most successful thing I ever did was I had a real estate brokerage. And it was to the point where I began to hate real estate. I did
Mm,
not like my agents. I did not like my clients. I just hated everything about it. And it's because I got too overwhelmed. I got
right.
too in micromanaging mode, and I had to control every aspect of every little thing. And that was the biggest thing I've had to overcome, was the need to be in control. So when I hear someone who's in their 20s or 30s and they're just starting out in business and they're talking about, well, I have to stay on top of this and I have to stay, and I'm going, try it. Let me know how that works in 5 years. Because you lose track of yourself
Yeah.
when you do that. And that's a big thing for people to understand. It's not always about the big picture. Sure, you can visualize on your perfect life, your perfect life till the cows come home. I don't care. Around here, that's about 6 p.m. But that's I've timed the cows. Um, but it's more rewarding if you congratulate yourself on
Yeah.
every step. You have to take those tiny steps. You have to start. You don't start out up here. You start out down here,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get there. Those tiny little steps are so important.
They
And
are.
congratulating yourself and celebrating those tiny little steps are critical to getting you where you want to be. But I do find it entertaining listening to people who are just starting out in business and they're doing all the things that I did. So I can't say they're wrong, but boy, what a learning experience, they're setting themselves up for. It's just one step at a time. You can't skip steps in life. You just cannot. I mean,
Well, and then when you look at the big picture and you're not there, and then, and you can apply this to anything. It's not just, business or money, but when you're not there, you'll fall off the wagon. And
yep,
sometimes it takes longer to get back on. You're not, if you want to lose 50 pounds, it's not going to happen in a day. You've got to take the steps to get you to that. And when you're looking and you're not seeing the scale, or you're not taking in the wins of, well, my clothes fit looser, or look,
right.
I can see my jawline again, or whatever little things along the way, but you're looking at that big picture of being in a bikini in June, you're not realizing those steps, and you can absolutely fall. And if you have a tendency, I am one of them, to walk away when things get hard or when you fall, business related for me, it was
Yep,
absolutely business related, but it's stressful, it's
yeah,
painful, and I sold myself short, like you said. I didn't give myself a chance to really step into
right.
being that next level person, whether it's in business or relationships or whatever. I didn't allow myself to do that.
Yeah,
So that's also, something that's detrimental to yourself, to your person. Your
Right.
spirit aches, and it's sad when you're not allowing yourself to be that full version of yourself, and you feel it. This is not woo woo.
Yeah.
You feel it. You
You
can
feel it.
absolutely feel it. And if you know when you're not being true,
Yep.
and when you're not doing something that you should be doing, or when you're not taking it in the direction that it should be going, or when you're not giving yourself grace or praising the little things that you've done along the way. You know that it's hurting you.
Yeah, you do. And sometimes we need to stop and rest. And we don't give ourselves that opportunity. But if things are getting more and more difficult every day, at some point you're going to say, you know what, today I'm not going to focus on business. I had to do that this past week. It was just hit after hit after hit. And I told my business partner, I feel like I'm being, sucker punched to the gut. And after a couple of days of that, I was like, you know what? I just need to stop. I just need to stop. I need to take a breath. I need to reground myself and refocus on what is my next step forward now. And sometimes we get too caught up on the goal. This is
Yeah.
where we want to get. And we don't realize maybe that path isn't straight. Maybe it curves a lot, and that's still okay. You're still moving forward. Sometimes the universe protects us from moving too quickly. And sometimes there are things that we're capable of that the universe is saying, you know what? Take a breath. Take a breath. Take two breaths. You're not quite ready. You may be ready intellectually, but you're not ready for the emotional turmoil that you have just set yourself up for. And I see that a lot. I used to do a lot of business coaching. I don't do so much
Okay.
business coaching anymore, but it would be same story over and over and over. I was doing this, and then I've got to do this, and then this is my next step, and this is my next step. And I'm like, what happens between this step and this step? What do you mean? It just goes magically from here to here. No, it doesn't. And if you're not ready, if you are, and I saw this in real estate, I'm going to use this poor guy as an example. He, a decent enough agent, not emotionally mature enough to be put in a place of negotiations. We were at a negotiation table. I was called in because he kept crying.
Oh,
What do you mean you're not going to agree to this? This is good. What do you mean? I worked really hard on this. And they would say, but we want this and this. And he'd burst into tears. Not a great thing at a negotiation table. So while he fancied himself a, potential real estate broker with his own company, he was not emotionally mature enough to get there. All the knowledge in the world. He had a degree in real estate. He
wow. Okay.
knew
Didn't
real
know that
estate,
existed. Okay.
but he didn't have the emotional maturity.
Right.
And sometimes that happens. It's not a bad thing. It just means you need to grow a little bit more before you
Right.
can take that next step. And you should still congratulate yourself for realizing that. And sometimes going back to shame, we're ashamed of ourselves because we realize, oh, I'm not emotionally mature enough for this. Oh, why not?
Right.
And instead of saying this is something I need to work on,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
just,
Don't be ashamed of it. Work on figuring out. So I also like to use emotionally regulated.
yeah,
Knowing how I'm a crier, but if I got angry, I was a crier when I was angry, or if I felt like I wasn't expressing myself and not being understood,
yeah,
I could cry as well. And, I did get to the point where I could fight it back, but now I have things that I do to where I don't allow it to feel like an atomic bomb is about to explode inside of me,
right,
because I have coping mechanisms. I have ways to okay, I got to breathe because this is not how I am. This is not
Right.
who I want to be. I don't want to lash out and be this venomous,
Right.
two-tongued lizard, whatever. When I speak, like I don't want to be angry and I don't want to be mean to people. So what were the coping mechanisms, or what can I rely on? And a lot of that is, and we're saying this a lot, bringing yourself back to the present, bringing yourself back to inside your body, and not having the past and the future and the present all whirling around you when you're having this emotional breakdown. And we're not saying don't have emotional breakdowns. That is not what we're saying. But how do you regulate yourself if you're around people, or how do you bring yourself back? And really, it is bringing yourself back to the present. What are some things that you like to do? I know for me, it's recoiling just a minute, like, oh, that's not who I am. And instead of having both sides of me screaming inside of my head, like, don't do this, do this. No, don't do this, do this. Like that whole, like, I
Right.
don't want to take this drink, but I'm taking this drink anyway.
Right.
Like for me now, it's breathing. And sometimes I'll just trace my finger in a spiral just to kind of zen out for a second.
Yep.
Now it depends on what situation I'm in, but that's something that I really like, is the
Yep. Yeah. Taking a deep breath brings you back into your body, whether you want to be there or not. One of the things that I have ended up doing unintentionally is I've been coaching a lot of kids with spirituality and how to understand what they're seeing or what they're hearing or what they're feeling. And I swear we've got a whole generation of psychics coming up. But anyway, it's interesting how they look at things differently. And nothing will bring you back down to earth quicker than a child will, because the way they think of things is just so, oh, I remember when I thought that too. But there was a girl, she's actually 12, she's not a little kid, but what she does, and it's so funny. She puts both her hands on top of her head and she jumps up and down and she goes, I'm grounding now. And she just, and I saw her do it the first time and it just cracked up everyone around. But she said that helps her because she tends to, her mother said she turns into a vicious velociraptor. And she just, and that helps her not do that. And the image I had in my head was of an adult in a boardroom doing that. That's just hilarious to me. But that's one of the things you can do. Excuse yourself from a situation. What I learned through my hideously ugly divorce was it's perfectly fine to say, you know what you said just really upset me. And I don't want to be as hateful as you're being. So I'm going to take a break and we'll talk about this later. And that calmed me down instantly. Made him worse, but it calmed me down because you can take a step back. You do not have to get drawn into other people's junk. And a lot of what I see, I don't watch news too much anymore, but occasionally I do. Usually when I'm at the grocery store and I hear people talking about something and I'm like, I have no clue. So then I go back home and I Google it to see what was going on. But people get too caught up in the drama. Protesters screaming and yelling and throwing things at each other is not going to help anything. So we all need to collectively take a step back sometimes and say, okay, is this the version of me that I want on the news?
Right.
I mean, seriously, people, but there has to be a way that works for you that will stop you in your tracks.
Yeah, exactly.
I tend to take a deep breath and take 3 steps back, or I go outside. Just being outside is very calming for me, but it's not for everyone. The bugs are awake where I live now. And, not everyone finds outside, calming
Right.
now.
Right.
But find what works for you. Some people like music. I actually got into a kind of a heated debate on another podcast a while back. because I will defend your right to listen to heavy metal music if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
I know it's aggressive. I know all the things people are saying about it, all of the gurus, which if you're calling yourself a guru, you're not a guru. But anyway, it's not negative. You have to be picky. You know, you don't want something that has negative lyrics.
Right.
A lot of the time, if you listen to the lyrics, you realize this is someone telling their story about something that's happened to them that they got
Yeah,
over or that
exactly.
they're venting about. Those are good things. I
Well, and
think,
it's okay to rage. It's
yeah, it
absolutely okay
is.
to rage, just not on somebody's face,
Right,
right? Or
right.
like, or
But
not to somebody, but we have these emotions. Can
yeah,
we stop talking about trying to just deny the fact that we have anger? Anger is here for a reason.
yep,
We learn from it, it protects us. We shouldn't cause harm, but you know, it's okay to go to a rage room and smash a TV with a sledgehammer.
yep,
Just don't take that sledgehammer to somebody's head. Like it's
right, right,
okay.
right.
It's
You know,
okay to rage.
yeah,
And yeah,
yeah,
so I know we've talked about I've mentioned Angelina Jolie and how she used to, I don't know if she does it anymore. I don't really follow her and whatnot, but she would go into a pool and she would sit down on the bottom of the pool or go under the water at least, and she would scream everything that she needed to scream into the pool.
right,
And it didn't, this was, I guess, when she was still with Brad Pitt. So I guess they were going through their stuff, but screaming about all of the things, all the pressure, all of the things that were making her mad.
yeah,
And she'd get out of the pool and she'd feel better. Of course she did. She
right.
got it out.
You
She
have
didn't
to get it
ignore
out.
it. She didn't try to say, this doesn't exist. It's all sunshine and roses. She got it out.
Right. And that's one thing that if anyone takes one thing away, I wanted them to take away, you have to get it out,
Yes.
in a healthy manner, not going on a shooting spree or
Right.
beating someone up. You have to get it out in a healthy manner. Um, one of the things one of my clients does is she turns on rap music when she cleans her house. And she said,
Rage cleaning is amazing.
she said she doesn't even know what the lyrics are. I asked her, well, do you know what they're saying? No, can't understand a word they're saying, but she likes the beat. And she says she will jump around her house and, just really get into it. I do heavy metal most of the time when I clean my house. But, if rap is your thing, rap is your thing. It's just find what works for you. I know a kid who listens to polka music to unwind. And I'm like, that is hilarious.
I love that.
But whatever works for you. One of my students throws marshmallows. Is they're not going to hurt anybody.
They're
I'm
not
like,
gonna
yeah,
hurt
they're not
anybody.
going to
Yeah.
hurt anybody, but I still wouldn't throw things at people. And she said, well, I get mad at my brother sometimes and I throw marshmallows at him. Sometimes he doesn't even know he's got marshmallows in his hair. And I'm like, oh no. But not that that's a healthy way of dealing with it, but at least it's marshmallows and not something else.
Comedic relief in the moment.
Right.
For me, I love to drive. In fact, last night I was feeling antsy. It was normally my bedtime, and I was like, "Ooh, I'm feeling charged." We had the full moon, the alignment of the planets. There was a lot going on, and I felt it.
Yep.
I felt it in my nerves, and
Yep.
so I got in my car, and I went. And I got some ice cream, and I drove and picked up a friend, and we went and got some ice cream, and I drove my friend back home, and I came back home. It was I love to drive, and it calms me, it soothes me. I love the control that I get from being in my car. I don't suggest it in traffic if traffic bothers
No.
you, but I'm pretty much I'm a gentle person when it comes to driving, but every once in a while I might get mad, but I try to just understand that. I think you and I had a conversation about this once. They're new. You would say, "Oh, they must be new," and or they have more important things to get to, and
Right.
I don't know if
You just
They're
froze.
on their way to their
There you
mom's bedside because she's dying, or, what, oh, okay.
go.
Or, we don't know what people have going on. So when you're
Right.
in your present, you're also not so focused on being insulted or whatever from other people. You're more aware of what's happening with you. So for me, I went and drove and got some ice cream under the full moon last night, and it was sat out at a park and ate ice cream, and it was wonderful. So the little things that you can do.
Yep.
Journaling, it's such a cliche, but if you're not a let me rage out and clean my home or rage out and drive, not towards people, just like listening to loud music when you drive, if you're not like that, and you're a little more passive, then writing is an absolute great way to get it all out there. Writing and burning it's an even more cathartic approach. Just don't catch your house on fire.
No, 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 no,
Do
no.
it in a safe manner.
Somebody told me, I can't remember who it was now, when I was going through my divorce, so you should burn his pictures, just burn his pictures. I'm like, the energetic frequency, yeah, no, I don't want that karma. So I wouldn't burn a picture of someone, but if you can write something down and burn it, that's perfect. Don't underestimate the power of drinking a glass of water.
Mm-hmm.
You can do something very, very simple. If you put your hands around the glass and visualize energy flowing into the water, that's even better, but you don't have to do that. Water is purifying and it will calm you down. For me, it works instantly, but everybody's different. But find whatever works for you. I used to paint rocks when I was angry. I would go outside, I'd pick up a rock. I have a bumper crop of rocks around here. And, I would just pick one up and bring it in the house and paint something on it and put it back outside. Every once in a while, I find one of those rocks and I go, there it is. Some people throw things. If you live in the middle of nowhere, you can actually write something on a rock and throw it like you're getting rid of it, you're letting it go. I cannot do that because I have herding dogs and they will just bring the rock back to me. So that doesn't work. I have tried writing something on a tennis ball and throwing it, and because I knew they would bring it back to me anyway.
Yeah.
There's a million ways you can calm yourself down. You just need to reset.
Yeah.
Some people are really good at just saying, I'm taking a breath, I'm grounding. Okay, I'm good. I don't know anyone like that personally, but I've heard them talking about it on other podcasts. I have not achieved that level of Zen in my life yet. But if you have, yay, it just do what works for you. Let go of the shame, let go of the guilt, let go of the shame over your guilt and the guilt over your shame. Just let all that stuff go.
I want to mention one of my favorite ways to move to the next level, if you will. And it's a practice. It's set in stone. But one of the things that I love to do is to really go in and sit with whatever was bothering me. Why was it bothering me? But even more so than that, at least, even if I can't pinpoint the exact moment that something may have triggered or that something may have happened in my life that caused this reaction or whatever, I still like to find whatever version of my child self that I can and tell my child self that it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here to protect you now. My job is to take care of you.
Right.
Your job is to go back and be a kid. And that can help. It takes a minute to get to the point where you're not feeling silly or where you actually can believe in that. But that part of you is still there. That
Yeah.
part of you travels with you and it does bring up some things. So, it is your adult responsibility to do for that child that you wished somebody had done for you. So go and do that for that person. Go
Right.
do that for your past self. And it really is cathartic and it really does help.
One thing that I want to add to that, I know we've talked a lot about mirror work in the past. And
Yes.
I know someone who she takes mirror work to kind of an extreme, when she finds she's been really upset. And we were talking one day and she says, I've got to go talk to my inner child. I'm like, well, don't let me keep you. I'll talk to you later, because I wasn't sure what she was doing. But the whole time she'd been venting for me, to me for like 20 minutes. And she
Okay.
finally said, I've got to go talk to my inner child. So I asked her what kind of conversation she was planning on having. And she said, all right, this is really stupid sounding, but it works for me. When I get caught in rage mode, I look myself in the mirror, in the eyes in the mirror, and I picture my inner child and I say, this is not the way we do things. Got it? And I went, that's hilarious. But don't underestimate silly. Sometimes
Right.
that really, really, really works. So I think we're
Love
going to
that.
leave it there.
I think that's a great way to stop.
So thank you guys for watching, listening, whatever you're doing. We will be back next Sunday with more. I may even have a Band-Aid not on my face next week. We'll see. So we will see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.
Bye.